to Soulful Eclectic. I'm your host, Diana Collins, and I want to welcome you. If this is your first time coming in and listening, thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoy what you hear, and if you do, that you share it with someone that may need to hear it. And if you are returning, I want to say thank you for coming back, and thank you for being a supporter and supporting me as we go on this journey. And I hope that something that we discuss on any of the episodes resonates with you or with someone that you can share the information with. So today we're going to speak with Apostle Yvonne Harrison, and we're going to talk to her about her journey with being in the LGBTQ life and her spiritual walk with God, and how she became her authentic self as a member of the church and women of the church. So we'll begin. Yeah, so we're just going to first talk a little bit about you and how you started on your journey, because I know you're an apostle, you're in the church, you're in the LGBTQ community, and all these pieces that go together, and sometimes people will see it as they don't go together, right? So how I just want to talk about you, how you navigate through that, how you've come to this point where you've now started Women Can Preach, the Women Can Preach movement and things like that. So yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of pieces to you that I was checking out there.
Wonderful.
You were referred to me from a dear friend of mine, and I consider them to be a family member, Chris Woolard. So I was very blessed to learn about the Women Can Preach movement, and stepping into that authentic self of you. So yeah.
Oh, wow. I'm honored. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So go ahead. Where about you? Start there. How about that?
Oh, okay. So I literally I think it's important for me to start from the beginning of what I believe my ministry was birthed from, or out of, shall I say. I ran track and field professionally, and for 13 years, in fact, also included one Olympic Games. And so as a professional athlete, running from country to country, it was imperative for me to be a witness and to be a person that represented Jesus Christ in more ways than what I call one, in terms of the area of the gift that God had given me to run track and field. So while I was competing in numerous events in the United States and going across, the seas, what we call Europe, to compete professionally, I was able to hone in or tap into the gift that God had given me and my desire to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. So the very beginning of my ministry started with a ministry called Called to Compete Ministries. And it was very basic. There was no theological framework for it. There was no mission statement. There was no vision that was explicated. It was just, me realizing that I had an inner sense and a deep desire, again, to share the gospel wherever God took me. And so Called to Compete. So I felt like God, chose me to compete in the arena of track and field, but at the same time called me to win souls for Christ. So as we began the journey of professional track and field, and again, running on the circuit, I would utilize Bible study, prayer meetings, mimic or mock church services for all of the professional athletes, no matter where the country they actually, represented. But we always had opportunities to share our faith, share our experiences one with another. So I did that for about 4 or 5 years professionally. And then it was during that time that I sensed a deep call, a deep sense, like I said, to literally wherever I went, God allowed me to share again the gospel. And so I came back after one particular European tour and sat with my pastor and let him know that the burning desire that I felt was greater than, being a disciple, greater than being just a regular church member. I just felt like God was calling me to ministry. So at that time, I went and moved from Champaign, Urbana to Houston, Texas, where I entered seminary school, Houston Graduate School of Theology, and pursued my MDiv, Master of Divinity, and at the same time working at a church in Houston with the youth and young adult ministry. So ministry was easy at the very beginning. It was, again, from athletics straight into seminary, and then desiring, like I said, to do more. And so the expansion really came, after I was licensed and ordained, the expansion came when I realized that internally that I knew that I was same than the loving. Internally, I knew that, God had gifted me, not just to run track and field, gifted me to preach the gospel, to teach the gospel, but also gave me a special populace, shall I say, that those who are oppressed, those who are marginalized, those who, do not have equal say. And so for me, it was more groundbreaking to start a church, Restoration Temple Ministries, that would support and provide a place, a safe place for same gender loving people, LGBTQ persons of faith. I wanted them to be consistent with their ability to worship God freely, to come as they were, not to feel judged or condemned, not to be beat over the head, so to speak, with the Bible, not to be discriminated against just because of their sexual orientation and or gender identity. And so I was called at that particular time to have a church that, the people that I represent will be able to come to, could develop, mature, matriculate, hone their gifts, develop their gifts, utilize their gifts. And then I became on the forefront of what I call social change. So, of course, Affirming Ministries, I feel like God chose me to play an important role in fighting from a social justice perspective or activism perspective for the LGBTQ community, fighting for equality, essentially, again, presenting a place, not just in ministry, but in the community where we can create moral change and social change and highlight, the political ideas that were important for us, that would motivate us to cause change, because I just thought it was important for us to actually do that. So I pastored the church for 10 years, really 9 years in total. And then I was elevated from pastor to apostle. And so just within the last 2 years, in fact, July 29th, 2018, I was affirmed as an apostle. And in the interim, felt that God was calling me to expand my reach, expand my connectivity, expand my ability to, once again, the gospel, but not within the four walls. So I successed and passed my church on to my then executive pastor, who is now the senior pastor, Rose Hardy. We were in ministry together for over 7+ years. And when the Lord said it was her, it was time for me to give the baton to her while she pastored the church and took it to the next level, the next dimension. And so now I'm doing apostolic work. In other words, I'm working within the kingdom. I'm a pastor of pastors. I'm leading pastors. I'm teaching pastors. I'm preparing pastors. Wow. I'm equipping pastors. I'm motivating pastors, just giving them the framework of whatever God has called them to do foundationally in their particular ministry, in their particular churches. And so I travel around the world, from city to city, state to state, even countries, to ignite and empower pastors and leaders, so women can preach to birth while I was pastoring Restoration Temple Ministries about 5 years ago now. I believe we're going in the 6th year. And that was a platform that I felt was necessary, because not in conjunction with my church or not in conjunction with itinerant ministry, but it was a platform that was needed because as a female pastor, as a female leader, as a female activist, I felt that there were, not that there were none available, but in terms of my exposure, I didn't have very many female mentors as I progressed and developed and matured into my area of my calling. So I wanted to give back. So Women Can Preach Too is a platform that provides an ecumenical, safe place, for women to find and develop their voices and to create a safe space and a platform for their voices to be heard. And so, again, 6 years now, we provide training, we provide seminars, workshops, things of that nature, leadership training. So it's phenomenal. And I'm very excited about where God has me.
Yeah, that's, and that's amazing because I listened to what you were saying and I'm thinking about all the women that I've known in ministry, especially when it came to being in the LGBTQ community. They were all white for the most part. And so I, just appreciate you and what you're doing by being a woman of color, because there aren't that many of us that are joining God and uniting who we are truly together.
Right.
Because we're always pulled apart. So me growing up, I in the LGBTQ community and going to church, you went to the regular secular Baptist church where they're condemning my lifestyle. So when I did find that non-denominational church where I felt welcome and was welcomed, the preacher, the pastor, the apostle was always white. So I never had that connection. So then that led me to step away and find my own spiritual growth. So hearing that, I'm like, wow, where were you when I...
Right.
So I'm like I said, I'm empowered by reading and listening and, watching what it is that you have built just from, what I've seen online and what I was able to connect to. And I'm just like, wow, like, again, if I had that 20 years ago, what kind of person would I be? So for the youth of today to have that, I'm hoping they're taking that opportunity to tap into that, because that is so important, so vital to their growth and being who they truly are and connecting themselves with God and staying connected with God or whoever spiritual being that they find that connection with.
Exactly. I agree.
And you're taking it around the world.
Yes. I had the opportunity to preach in South Africa last September 2019. And when I received that invitation, it was almost like deja vu, because I had already, 15 plus years ago, as I mentioned, Called to Compete Ministries, when I was competing in Europe. And I had a series in South Africa. And so I competed there for 3.5 weeks. And South Africa was one of the biggest areas that we held a Bible study. And I can remember as clear as day that over 15 people, accepted Jesus Christ. And so going back to South Africa, obviously from a different perspective now, it was almost like God was sending me back originally to where it actually first started. So it was very, very emotional, very sentimental. And I just really appreciate the fact that I was able to now share the gospel on the platform for Women Can Preach Too this past year.
Oh man, that's amazing. I'm so jealous you went to Africa. I'm so trying to get there. And then they closed the world. I had the opportunity to speak in Thailand. I'm like, you closed the world now?
Right, exactly.
Oh,
but it'll open up again soon. You'll have a chance.
Oh yeah, so I'm waiting. I'm just waiting to just get out there and do some. My world is all healthcare, so
got it.
Healthcare equity, and making sure that we in the LGBTQ community have healthcare equity. That's my wheelhouse. But so creating the Women Can Preach movement, where, I guess, your building blocks. You started with running and building it there. Where do you see it? Where do you want to take it moving forward?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I can honestly say that God has superseded what I thought, was, well, not, I'm going to say was or is the vision, because initially when the vision was inscripted or inscribed, shall I say, into my heart, God said that it was a covenant, interdenominational, multicultural branch of ministry, established to provide a platform for women in ministry to effectively operate, cultivate, nurture, strengthen their gifts. And I knew it was significant and important because I wanted women, at the same time that they had this platform, to not compromise their integrity, their authenticity, their character, or their worth, as women servants. And I say servants because it's not a ministry solely for preachers. And so my mandate still remains the same, is to strengthen women in ministry, to provide spiritual edification and empowerment and resources. And so when I say where is it going or what can happen from here, the resources that I've been able to provide from an economic empowerment perspective, in other words, not just providing preaching and teaching, but providing platforms that integrate a variety of women from different denominations. I think the multicultural piece is now expanding and is growing exponentially because the need is not just in the African American community, but the need is in the Latino community. The need, is in the Caucasian community, the Asian community. And so now we have a cluster of female, or shall I say clergy or women in ministry, who are participating and who are partnering with us, that I see the growth and the development of Women Can Preach to superseding my imagination. So what I would like to see happen is I want to provide, not really, I don't want to call it an institution, but alternative seminary experience. In other words, knowing these days what women in ministry have to contend with. In other words, many of us are wives, many of us are moms. Some work, some don't work. And so a lot of women cannot afford that secondary education that is paramount or important, for their callings. And so I just wanted to have a Bible Institute that would be free of charge, that would afford each woman who desires and aspires to receive that seminary degree, but perhaps they will be able to get certificates. There will be certificate programs, certificate degrees and things of that nature. So I see it expanding virtually. And I say that because the pandemic has given a new profound, scope of outreach in terms of virtually who you can connect to. We're no longer limited to the four walls of what we're accustomed to. I'm no longer limited to an email distribution list. The expansion now means that on any given Wednesday or any given Sunday or any day of the week that I do a special project for Women Can Preach to, we have over 1K or 2K viewers from all around the world. So I think that the reach of having this institute, for me initially, I thought it would be locally, I thought it would be, within a four-wall parameter, but now it's going to be an online opportunity, where women from across the world and across continents could actually integrate with one another, share ideas and things of that nature, and grow and receive those degrees at the same time. So
awesome. Now, in that, do you plan on having some sort of mentoring program along with it?
Yes, that is the next phase. That's the next phase. I'm actually doing some entrepreneurial mentorship. I have a ton of spiritual mentors now, but entrepreneurially, I'm gleaning from a woman named Angela Richardson. She's amazing, and so it's her mentorship program is really giving me that desire to branch out now on what I know that God has called me to provide a mentorship program for Women Can Preach To. So I've already, based upon the women who are partnered with Women Can Preach To, I've already assigned pastors and clergymen, across the nation with some younger female in ministry or clergy or preachers. And so it's almost like it's already being done, but it's not really in the scope or the framework of organizational structure, so to speak. So I definitely see it happening within the next year or two. Yes.
Wow. Yeah. So you're just expanding. You're doing these amazing things. Oh my goodness. I'm trying to keep up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's doing that and she's doing that. Whoa.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. So there's nothing but greatness going forward, and wow, what a blessing. I'm so blessed to meet you. Oh my gosh.
Oh, I'm honored. Thank you for the opportunity to share on your podcast. I mean, I think it's even great for me. I think it's another scenario where I think God showed that the pandemic, is not going to restrict us from what we have been comfortable in, or even the demographic or the populace or the surrounding area that, we've operated in. Just meeting you, is a step outside of, the cultural norm in terms of, organized religion, so to speak. And so This is my very first podcast outside of, what I call church and or ministry. And so I think it's great, to integrate and to get some different ideas. So thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So we had such a great conversation with Apostle Yvonne Harrison that I didn't want our conversation to end. But this is going to be a 2-part episode. This is part 1. With that, I want everyone who is listening to just listen and see what resonates with them on this journey that Apostle Yvonne has taken us on. And where does religion and your life and your authentic self, are the two meeting very well? Are they clashing? To think about those things and how spirituality is incorporated into your day-to-day authenticity, and how does it show outwardly to others. So with that, I'm going to leave us with that note, and I hope you come back to hear part 2 because we had more conversation. I want to thank Apostle Yvonne again for coming on, and if you have not already, please email me and let me know your feedback on the show. My email is dc@thesoulfuleclectic.com. You can reach me on my Facebook page, Soulful Eclectic with DC, and I'm also on Instagram, thesoulfuleclectic.com. Oh, excuse me, not the .com, but the Soulful Eclectic. And also, you can just reach me on my email, thesoulfuleclectic.com. So definitely like, subscribe, rate the show, and I appreciate anyone and everyone who is honest and forthcoming with their feedback. So God bless, take care, namaste.